we at Shrine University first want to thank you for attending and being a part of our live stream session here. We do ask, or at least for me, unless Dr. Caesar has something else planned, is that you please keep yourself muted in respect to others. And if you have any questions, please, by all means, just type them in the chat and we'll try to get after them one at a time um, during the presentation. In today's live stream, you will hear from Dr. Caesar. And again, if I'm saying your name wrong, please correct me. An assistant professor of biology as he discusses just biology and the sciences at Shrine University. So feel free to ask him any questions that you might have from this Shriner Insider. And without further ado, I'll pass it over to Dr. Caesar, if he can hear us.
Yep, I got it. Everybody can hear me okay? And yeah, so if you're new to Zoom, as what is that, Mike said, you can use the chat feature to ask questions. If you don't feel comfortable verbalizing it, feel free. I'm fairly informal about this. This is my first time doing a recruiting event like this, by the way, so we'll kind of wing it and see how it goes. But yeah, feel free to ask questions on the chat or just chime in verbally if you want, unmute your mic and ask away. But as he said, I'm a professor of biology at Shriner. Been here going into my 6th year now. Very much enjoy being a professor here. I went to big schools myself and really love being in an environment where I get to know my students. That's definitely one of the benefits of being in a small school like Shriner, is that you will know your professors after a semester or two very well in many cases. You'll probably take multiple classes from the same professor, which is kind of not normal at bigger universities. And you'll have opportunities to work with your professors on research projects, or in my case of science, we do a lot of research, but if it's not a science field that you go into, working on projects with your professors, whether it's business or art or any of the other disciplines. I saw from the list that I got that most of you are interested in some kind of science field, but if you're not, I'll try and just give you general information about Shriner as well. But let's see, so being a biology student or a science student at Shriner means that your first semester or two, you'll take a lot of courses that are not science, not biology, not in your major, considered general education courses. You might take 1 or 2 science courses, but that's normal at any university. You have to get some general education requirements under your belt. So those other non-science classes that you might take would be things like a math class, a history class, an English class, or whatever. And then usually in terms of your major, you know, you would take an introductory biology course or an introductory chemistry course and use that as an opportunity to sort of make sure that you actually like biology. You know, you may think you like it coming out of high school, but you may find when you get to a university that you don't. Get to know the professors, get to know other students. You'll be taking lots of the same classes with students that you know. Kind of like high school in that sense. Being at a small school, you'll know a lot of your classmates. You'll kind of have a cohort that you take a lot of the same classes with. You know, your freshman year is an opportunity for you to make sure that you like college, make sure that you understand and learn how to be a college student, because there's many things about it that are quite different from high school. You'll get involved in other activities, of course, and most of the faculty at Shriner respect and value extracurricular activities. We know it's part of your life and part of the reason why you come to Shriner, whether that's athletics or recreational activities or just hobbies or whatever. The way that the thing that I've enjoyed the most about being at Shriner is that then students, after we get to know them that freshman semester, first semester, second semester, there's an opportunity to get involved heavily with things like research, probably, I mean, potentially starting your freshman year, but certainly starting afterwards. For example, I have a couple of students that have worked with me for multiple semesters now on my own research. I am an entomologist, so I study insects and their relatives mostly, and so my own research has to do with that. And I've had a few students that have been involved in both lab and field work. I do a little bit of both. For multiple semesters, and this year I have a senior that just graduated who was able to get 3 publications as an undergraduate research student with me. Now that's quite rare. This is an exceptional student who really was dedicated, but a few other students have had a single publication, 1 publication. Well, even 1 publication as an undergraduate is rare. It certainly sets you apart if you want to go on to a career in science, whether it's graduate school, medical school, dental school, something like that. Having a research publication, even if it's not in a field that you want to go into, it's a really cool thing. And again, you can do that at any school potentially, but given that we know our students so well, it's a little bit easier for us who are active in research to get our students involved. And not only publications, but taking them to national conferences. I take students at least once a year, but usually twice a year, to some kind of national conference where they're learning about how research is done from other students and professors at other universities, and then actually showing off kind of what we do and giving presentations and things like that. And so I really look at my 4 years that I have with any group of students as being a way for me to build them up into um, not only people who have a well-rounded education in biology, but students who've actually done biology by the time they finish here. Um, so let's see, what other kinds of general things? I mean, by saying that, does anybody have any questions at this point? Let me check the chat thing here.
The only thing I see is that they can hear us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, no questions yet. Anybody want to ask a question? Unmute your mic and ask me anything. All right, well, I'll just keep talking then. So I think some of you may be like exercise science majors, or maybe interested in a nursing career, and that's a little bit different than a biology major dealing with me. But again, chances are good that you would take at least 1 biology class, even if you're not a biology major. Again, part of that general education, making you a well-rounded person. So if you're exercise science, for example, it might be a real good idea to take an anatomy and physiology course, or even just a general freshman biology where you're learning about how cells work. Because, for example, in order to be a healthy, functional athlete, or just somebody who loves physical fitness, you got to have the cells in your muscles working properly, and the connection between your brain and your muscles has to be working properly. And it's beneficial to understand that stuff. And so we do see a lot of exercise science majors, as well as biochemistry and chemistry majors, that take a lot of biology classes. And frankly, also the opposite goes. If you're a biology major, chances are you're going to take a lot of chemistry classes. Maybe if you're a public health student, you're going to take some biology classes again, because you might approach public health from a nutrition standpoint. How do we make human bodies healthier? Or you can also approach public health from like an epidemiology standpoint. We want to understand what's going on with viruses and bacteria, things like the coronavirus that we're dealing with now. And how does that stuff spread through human contact, and how have we gotten to the point that we are now with the pandemic? That's a kind of topic of public health, but it very much requires an understanding of some basic biology. I don't know if there are any other majors besides the science and exercise science ones on here, but certainly feel free to chime in if you do. We like working with people in the business program, for example, because there's a lot of things that we can do to combine biology and basic STEM science with business. Maybe you want to start a biotech company. Maybe you want to work at a biotech company, not on the science side, but on the accounting side or the finances side. Might be beneficial to take some biology classes to know what you're getting into there. Another thing that we might do to collaborate with students from other departments and faculty is, for example, we have a campus garden. It's a community garden for students and departments. There are some classes that use it. And even though, gardening and agriculture is kind of a biological field, we have honeybees in our garden, and we run a farmer's market. And so understanding how to market and sell those products would benefit from having people who are in business. Or we also work a lot with people in the art department to try and develop logos and marketing materials on the art side. to put on, we want to make labels for our honey and things like that.
Mhm.
And also just for the fine arts, we have students that come out and sort of use our garden as an inspiration for making sculptures and signage and paintings and things like that. And so um, we do interact with non-biology people on campus all the time. Okay, I see a question over here from Tyler.
Mhm.
Started biology as my major. I want to go into dermatology. Is that a good choice? Yes. Dermatology or any of the medical fields, really, step one is to get a biology degree or a chemistry degree. A lot of our biology students, oh, thank you. Wife brought me some tea. Um, a general biology degree or chemistry or biochemistry will set you up for what you eventually have to do is get into med school. Now, a pre-med major at other schools, we don't have a specific pre-med major because a pre-med major really is just a biology degree with maybe one or two different elective courses involved in it. And so just a general biology degree, there's two different tracks in biology that we offer. One is called cellular biology, where you would go into understanding how cells work, genetics, and the molecules of life. That's the one that we recommend most for anybody who wants to become a doctor of any type, whether it's dermatology or ER doctor or whatever. Same major for somebody who wants to go into dentistry as well. Our other biology track is environmental biology, and that's for people who really, really like nature, want to go into a career in something working with animals or plants, research on those things or whatever. But the cellular biology track would be good for dermatology. And what you're going to get is a set of courses that will help prepare you for the MCAT. The MCAT is the entrance exam that you would eventually take to see if you can get into an actual medical school after you graduate here. And so that degree is designed to give you the best opportunity to do well on the MCAT. Now, there's a bunch of things you would have to do in addition to that, studying specifically for the MCAT, which usually you would take in your junior year or maybe the beginning of your senior year. We have a medical careers club where the students who are interested in any of the many, many fields of medicine, besides just being a doctor, get together regularly. They do things like group studying for the MCAT. And of course, that's the kind of thing that you want to start as soon as you can, even though you might not take it for 3 years. The Medical Careers Club will also bring in guest speakers, often physicians and other actual people from the community who work in healthcare in some way, just to give you sort of advice and inspiration on going into that field. And they share a lot of information just about deadlines for prepping for medical school and things like that. So Medical Careers Club is very active on our campus. Yeah, so that I hope answers your question, Tyler. Definitely want to go with biology and the cellular track if you want to become a dermatologist.
So I've got two questions of my own. Usually I try not to stump the professors too much, but just being a previous alumni, got 2 degrees from Schreiner. I always like to ask questions. Being a biology undergrad is hopefully I'm not putting you on the spot on this one. Is what have you seen the students going into? Like what type of internships have they been able to go into in their, I guess, advanced level biologies?
Okay, yeah, that's a great question. So internships are something that we actually, well, it's not necessarily required. By the time you graduate, you have to do either an internship, which we help you with greatly, or you can do a thesis, which is really for students who are more interested in going into research and graduate school. Um, Internships in our community, if you're interested specifically in a healthcare type career, we're in a pretty good location for that. You may know that Kerrville itself is a community that features lots of elderly people who require a lot of healthcare, and for that reason, we have actually a lot of medical facilities in the community, more than you would expect for a small town like Kerrville. So we have a really large hospital. We also have a VA hospital. We have a state hospital which focuses on mental health issues and behavioral issues. which is a part of the medical field. We also have nearby, Fredericksburg has a large hospital, and of course, we're not very far from San Antonio. And so we do a lot of internship placements, and that can be anything from shadowing a physician. You know, you pick the kind of physician that you might want to shadow, a cardiologist, an ER physician, whatever. Um, and simply follow them around for a number of hours. Usually, what we require for a semester of an internship is 120 hours on the site with the person that you're working with doing the internship. But it's not just shadowing. We've had students do interns in, let's say, the microbiology labs, the clinical labs that are on associated with healthcare facilities, where they're actually sitting, looking at samples from patients, whether it's to try and help diagnose a pathogen, for example, or help looking at their cells and try and understand if there's a problem with that. That's work done in clinical labs, and we've placed students in those kinds of facilities. Um, Students can get internships slash paid jobs doing things like medical scribing, where they're following physicians around. And even though we have a lot of technology now, they still have to actually write down exactly what the physician is saying, and sort of keeping records for them. That's a great internship for someone interested in a career in medical field, because you get exposed to firsthand
Mm.
patient doctor interactions and stuff like that. I could go on and on about that kind of stuff, but it is a pretty good location with all of our healthcare services in Kerrville and the surrounding area. And by the way, another thing about internships is you don't have to do internships here in Kerrville. So, for example, if you're going home for the summer, we allow internships for course credit for work that you might do over the summer when you're back home. And just by the way, since you mentioned internships, there's all kinds of other ones. Um, so Jericho actually is mentioning working with the Blanco River Authority as part of a summer course. And we actually we have relationships for things like that, non-medical biology internships. Here in Kerrville, we have the Upper Guadalupe River Authority, where we place lots of students, and they can be doing anything from going out and sampling fish and insects in the rivers to doing microbiology type sampling to make sure that there's not excessive levels of E. coli in the river. And of course, they also do a lot of educational activities, teaching citizens and students in schools and whatnot about the importance of clean, healthy river ecosystems and stuff like that. So Jericho, let me see what your comment here is. Previously considered a science degree. Yeah, okay. So if you're interested in the kind of work that a river authority does, yeah, you would get one of several kinds of biology degrees. Probably have to go on to graduate school, maybe at least for a master's degree, to get a job in that field. But often with just a bachelor's degree, you can go work for a river authority, or things like, government agencies like the USDA. A lot of cities hire various biologists to do things like monitor the fresh drinking water sources, monitor the sewage processing facilities, things like that. Something like that would be good to focus on microbiology. Of course, we have microbiology classes, and you can do microbiology research here. Um, so yeah, a lot of people think that biology means you can be a doctor or work at a zoo or something. There's actually hundreds and hundreds of different career paths you can go to, and wherever you go to college. But certainly, if you came to Schreiner, um, that's our job, is to expose you to those career options and let you explore them a little bit, so that by the time you graduate, you have a good idea. Do I want to go get a job right away? Do I want to go to graduate school? Am I going into medical school? Things like that. And really, after Schreiner is where you would sort of, I don't know, make further decisions about your career. It's not the kind of thing that always happens right when you get a degree. You may have to go for more college after the fact.
So I know we're getting close to the amount of time, but usually there's one more question I always like to toss at professors. And I know sometimes when I was speaking with prospective students that are just even visiting the campus, that they're able to, um, they don't believe me when I tell them the classroom sizes. Would you be able to tell us what is like a normal classroom size for I guess, freshmen and sophomores, and then the, I guess, upper level or advanced courses, more or less, how many students do you see in those classes?
Yeah, again, it's one of the things I love the most about teaching at Schreiner is that my classrooms are fairly small, and I can get to know the students really well. Um, let me see. The biggest class that we have on average is, going to be 20, 24, maybe 30 students. But in biology, our classes that have labs associated with them are pretty limited because of fire codes and all that with the labs. So labs can't have anything more than 24 students. So it's very rare that you would have a class more than 24 students. Now on the other end, we sometimes have classes with 8 students or 10 students, and those are really good, especially for upper division classes, because a lot of our upper division classes we're going to be doing a whole lot of discussing, talking about a current event in science, or maybe we'll read a scientific paper and discuss it and analyze it and things like that. And it's really good to do that in a small group where people know each other and they're comfortable speaking. And typically you would hear that your freshman classes are really big and then they get smaller, but that's not always true. I mean, I'm teaching a freshman class now, again, one of these intro bio courses, and I think there's only 12 students in that class, so that would be very normal. It'd be rare that you have a class more than 30, and that only happens every couple years. Like, for example, if a professor moves on and we haven't hired a replacement yet, I have to do a double load. I think the biggest class I ever taught was 38 students. um, we only have one classroom that can even hold that much on campus, I think. So we're pretty committed to, and we think it's very important to keep class sizes small.
Definitely, definitely. I definitely agree. And I know when I was going through my undergrad, um, I know I don't really exaggerate this, but this was some years ago, just a number of years ago that I was doing that. I probably had maybe the 15 to 20 students, and then when I got into the upper level of biology with Dr. Distel, I barely maybe had 7 to 8 other peers with me right in there, and it really felt like I was able to have that one-on-one kind of connection, and alongside that, not just with the professor or the instructor, I also felt like whenever I asked a question in class, it wasn't just a response from the instructor, but it was a response from my peers, other students that understood the concept maybe better than I did, and it felt like it didn't feel like I was a part of a school almost. It almost felt like I was just really close friends, almost family at some points that
Yeah.
were just there to help me out no matter what. So I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, and I tell you, I got my PhD from Ohio State University. This is a giant school. It's the size of UT and A&M and all these other big ones that you may have heard of. And the first class I taught was there, um, and I had 400 students in my class. This was a small class for a school that big. With 400 students, I got to know maybe 2 of them. You know, people aren't going to speak. You can't have discussions in a class like that. It's just, traditional lecture, me telling you everything, you memorize everything I say. And by doing that, I learned I didn't like it at all. And so, coming to Schreiner and seeing that my classes are small, I can get to know the students. We can have in-depth discussions. Students pop into my office and we can have chit chats about class, but often just about regular life stuff. Um, and I don't know if they've explained this to you, but you will have a faculty advisor assigned to you. So a lot of big schools have an advisor of students who's kind of like your high school counselor. It's not somebody you really know. You only go to them when you need something. Well, we meet with our advisees on a regular basis and talk not just about, okay, what classes should you be taking? Are you on track to graduate? But, you know, sometimes personal life coaching type stuff. It allows us to understand when our students are struggling, even with stuff that's outside of class. You've got an issue with your family, you got an issue with a significant other, your job, whatever. um, we can talk about that, we can know about that, and I mean, I'm a fairly laid back professor personally. I can't speak for everybody, but I go pretty easy on my students. I'm flexible with due dates. If you've got a job and there's a test, and you're just not able to study, you know, we can do a makeup outside of the regular class time. I'm not gonna make you suffer because of a work issue, because you know you're an adult and we all have to work, you know, and college is not cheap. And so, you know, most of your professors here I think have a similar attitude, maybe not all of them. But you know, things like that are not possible when you don't know your professor.
Definitely, definitely. Well, Dr. Caesar, I don't know if you have anything else you'd like to add, but we're getting right there down to the last bit here. So if anybody has any questions, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to type in chat for my last few moments here. Um, what I'm providing for you is just, again, some of you may already have this, but it is the admissions email as well as an email to myself. I don't know if I really said this in the beginning, but again, I am Mike Vasquez. I'm with Shrine University. I am one of the amazing admissions counselors that are here to help you guys through with any questions you might have, whether it's where am I at in the process of my admissions, am I missing any documents? You're more than welcome to send any questions you might have, even if it's 10 minutes after this presentation. You're more than welcome to send any questions. And I know I have this little spiel at the end, and I just want to say again, thank you for joining us today for this seminar. Dr. Caesar also put his email and address in there, so if you have any questions, please by all means send him questions having to do with biology or anything you might want to know about it, internships, any of that nature. Again, thank you for joining us. If you have any questions, let us know. We are here to help you every step of the way in becoming a future Shrine University Mountaineer. All right. Well, if there's nothing else, I hope you all have a good one. All right.
Yep, and thanks again. Just feel free to email me. I'm happy to speak to students, prospective students, before you even get here, even if you're, you know, not sure if you're going to come here, just to answer questions about what it's like to be a biology student at Schreiner. And thanks for setting this up for us.
No, not a problem. You all have a good one. Take it easy.